Let me send you the link again.
Oh, it says live on. It actually says live right now.
Yeah, it's live now. Yep.
Okay, cool.
I haven't recorded anything.
Okay.
All right. Let me send you that. I promise you, bro. You learn anything on YouTube, man. Don't let anything tell you can't do nothing, bro.
So do I have to click on another link in order to join the YouTube live?
Well, just here. I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, just make sure you put the if you're gonna listen to it on, just put the volume down so it doesn't get the echo.
Okay.
And share it if you want. I'm about to post this right now, actually.
So it's the first link, right?
Yeah, they're both the same.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both the same. Yeah, this is gonna be fun, bro.
All right, cool.
God is good.
Let me see this link real quick. Okay, cool.
All right, I'm not sending you this link. I'm just sending it to myself so I can put it on.
Okay.
So you might get another
one. So do I have to click on the link? Oh, hold on. Oh, this. Okay, hold on 1 second.
You don't have to do anything.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's just for you to share it to someone if they want to listen. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
See how this works. Oh, okay. This is much better. This is cool. Okay. It's much better. It's no glare. You don't see really glare in the lighting. It's pretty cool, right? Okay.
Yep, that's perfect, bro. And thanks for rescheduling, man. I appreciate you being flexible.
Oh yeah, man. No, I mean, of course, man. This is dope. By the way, this is gonna be cool. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I love your backdrop.
Yeah, bro. I was hurt, bro, when he died, man. I don't even think I even really mourned. That's why I put it there, man. But yeah, man. Real Black Panther. You know that's what it's from, right? It's from the Black Panther movie.
Yeah, I know. And
I've seen Black Panther so many times. Yeah, it's just like when they was whenever he goes to that spiritual place.
T'Challa.
Yep. This is the ancestor.
Astro.
Sorry, bro. One last post. Just trying to. I don't need people to. I mean, I love people to join, but just want to get the word out. Got a podcast with my brother from another mother.
Yeah.
All right, bet. And it's Powell, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are you related to Norman Powell from the Toronto Raptors?
I am. No, I'm not. You know, I just talked to someone on Clubhouse the other day that was such a Norman Powell fan. I'm like,
oh,
he's cool, but I never knew like a fan of Norman Powell.
Fan of Norman Powell? That's a real basketball lover right there.
Yeah, he is. I'm like, bruh, like no one's getting a Norman Powell jersey, bro. Like,
but he's dependent, man. If you need a backup, anything, Norman Powell gonna knock 3 down for you. You do everything.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a good 6th man or 7th man for sure.
For sure. All right, brother, man, let's get it.
All right.
Right.
And you know, also we gotta do like a part 2 one day as well. Like a part 2.
Oh, shit, that's a great idea, man. I was actually going to come back, but that's what's up. Bet.
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right, you even do the podcast yet. That's what's up. All right, let's get it.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to C Simple Podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I got my brother Rafael Powell. What's up, brother?
What's going on? What's up? What's up? I'm glad to be here, man. Honestly, this is like maybe the first like podcast I've been a part of as a guest in a sense. Yeah, so it's definitely a cool feeling. It's different for sure. You know, I'm enjoying the vibes, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully it won't be the last, man. You got a very kindred spirit, man.
Thank you.
One thing about Clubhouse, which is where we met, you know, I think Clubhouse is a pure example of real recognized real. Because in order for you to genuinely connect with people, you have to try to connect with them without seeing them based off of
That's
their
true.
voice,
Your
right?
voice. Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing about the voice, you can tell. You can tell if someone's phony. You can tell if someone doesn't have integrity. You can tell if someone's trying to con you. If you're street smart, you know, educated, you've been through a lot of mishaps or whatever. But bro, every time I was in a room with you, man, I just felt connected. I felt like, brother, man, I felt like, because you're a teacher. Hold on, hold on quick, brother, man, hold on. Yeah, bro, I felt connected because, you know, you were a teacher, and then we was also in 9 other teaching rooms, and we was just, you know, networking. And the beautiful thing about being a teacher, man, is that we are never in a box. We are everything. We are artists, we're psychologists, we're social workers, we're down to earth people. We can be serious, we can be assholes. You know, we're everything, man.
I agree. I appreciate that, man. And the interesting thing about Clubhouse too, I feel like with our dynamic is partly what brought us kind of together in terms of like connection is, I know you're not originally from the DC metropolitan area, but you definitely grew up there post Katrina. So usually the first thing I think of when being on Clubhouse, the first couple of times I was on Clubhouse, I'm thinking, all right, how many people on this app is from my area? And then I come to find out it's so many people that come from this area that are on Clubhouse. It's like crazy. And I'm like, wow, like we must be one of the top tier groups of people that's on the app.
I mean, whatever you want to call it, man, I'm just blessed to be around people that care about kids, they care about the truth, you know, and they like to be down to earth. You know what I'm saying? Like we was talking about, we don't take ourselves too serious. You know, like every time I see somebody that says a pro moderator, I just laugh. What the hell school would you go to become a pro moderator? Like,
exactly, and that's the thing too. When I feel like, oh my gosh. But the negative thing about Clubhouse, I feel like with people who say they're pro moderators, right? They usually try to boot someone or constantly mute someone's mic who doesn't really agree with their stance on a particular subject matter. And the thing about even having a healthy debate, you should welcome opposition, right? Not just exclude it. You should welcome it.
Absolutely, and that's learning. That's how you learn. There's a movie called, gosh, it's like Boy Academy or something like that, and it's a recreated movie that it's an all boy camp, and it's a camp that plays on how the government works. So essentially, the camp, it gets divided into delegates, gets divided into senators, get divided into, you know, pretty much constituents, and then you vote on people and you run for president. And it's during 2020. So you already know politics are going to be polarizing. Everything is either left or right. And you got high schoolers who are Trump supporters. Now, this is my opinion. I think that's good. I think that's good because they're kids. Their innocence, their ignorance is, you know, they have a possibility to learn. And so, like what you said, first of all, no one likes a one-sided yes man ass conversation.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, no one likes that. And then secondly, you do not learn if you're not challenged with the opposite information, with the opposite idea. That's the only way that you really learn, and that is the classroom. What do you think?
Here, the thing is too about that, and you under like, okay, so even on Clubhouse, we're going back on Clubhouse, you can tell the people who are trying to learn and the people who are trying to impose their beliefs without actually being recipients of learning something new, right? So even in the classroom, there should be exchange, whereas like I'm teaching a child something that they didn't know prior to, and I'm also learning myself on how to even reach them even further based upon what are their stakes in terms of learning the information that I'm giving them, right? So that's the reciprocation of education. It's like, okay, how can I reach this person that I'm trying to deliver a message to? You know, and Clubhouse in itself is a bunch of messengers, well, false messengers, but they're not open to receiving, even to grow. You know what I mean? So
right.
yeah.
They're replying to debate, not replying to listen. Or
Exactly.
correctly?
Yeah.
but yeah, and I told my wife when I first started Clubhouse is that instantly I had to learn to listen very well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to learn to listen very well. God gave us 2 ears for a reason, and it helped my teaching somehow. Because I was in this dude's name. His name is DJ Beezy.
Okay.
And DJ Beezy has the most energy in the world. When you come into this room, he's like, "Oh, what's up, Calvin? Teacher, what's up, man? Go ahead and plug yourself. All right, appreciate that, Calvin." And then he goes, "All right, now we about to come back and do it. I appreciate you." And I'm like, every second, I'm just up, I'm up, I'm up, I'm up. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me try this in the morning. Like off jump, when I start advisory, when I start my class, I'm gonna start off with ample energy.
And ample energy.
I'm just gonna just see how they respond. And then I'm like, what's up, everybody? It's Calvin Elm. It's the STEM class that you always wanted. What's up, y'all? Good morning. Let me get about 50 good mornings in the chat right now. Let's get it.
50 good mornings in the chat.
Right? You know, and it helped, you know,
Yeah.
but one thing it helped me. Like it kept my spirit up. So let's get into teacher tip of the week, man. So many teachers are going through more than they should. The world is going through more than they should, but especially teachers, people who've been told to literally flip their entire pedagogy, their entire custom of teaching, their entire ways, and go into just a whole new reality. And there's still, unfortunately, some places are still keeping those same standards as if we're not in a pandemic no more. So my advice to teachers would be to always, 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 always speak up for yourself. I keep saying teacher advocacy is the most important thing when you're talking about your mental health and your best interest of your kids, right? And here's the tip. Read the school's website. Read their mission. Memorize it. Right? Write it on paper, memorize it. And whenever they are contradicting that mission, bring it up. Well, excuse me, according to the mission, you say that we want to be for family, equity, and inclusion. But this policy right here is the complete opposite of that. And I'm just trying to have clarification. You know, but some teachers, so unfortunately, because they've been abused and used, they don't sometimes it's just hard for them to have that. What advice would you give to teachers during these times?
I would say, honestly, during this time is stretching the boundaries and, well, actually, like, you know what I mean? Creating new lanes for the pedagogy. So pretty much it's like, as we all know, we both know, like pedagogy is the method and practice of teaching.
Right.
And so in order to be an effective teacher, your pedagogy in itself should not be stale, right? It should always be fresh and new with new ideas. And what I mean by that, and I think this is a time where we're solely integrated in technology. And for some teachers, they're so used to the archaic sense of writing objective on the board, like everything on the board, not really implementing much technology. And because even today, some school districts don't even have whiteboards in their classrooms because they don't have the funding for it. So COVID has actually put us in a position to implement creative ways to visually grab our students, either through Prezis, certain types of PowerPoint presentations. And that's putting them to work, right? Because even as an educator, we are not stopped learning. We can't stop learning, right? If we stop learning, then we're not being an effective educator. and we're failing ourselves and our students because we're not learning.
Why do you love to learn, and where did you learn that from?
Oh, my statement I just dropped on you just now?
Yeah.
Literally, I would say my first year, man, one of the teachers I learned so much from, he is actually a martial artist on the side, Mr. Cooper. You know, Mr. Cooper was one of those guys. I called him the black male teacher. You know what I mean? Because he came in, you know, he had this like bravado about him. And, you know, he's always doing fist punches like in between like classes ending and stuff to always have his mind trained. And the first thing he told me, he was like, "You want to know want to know something in your first year you should think about doing? Stop lesson planning week by week. What you should be doing is unit planning. So your unit plan is the lesson plans, is the lesson of the lesson plans. Really, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, absolutely.
you know if a unit is coming up soon, effectively plan that unit out weeks in advance. But then you already know you have your activities set, you have your objectives set, you have what you want to issue for homework and stuff like that. And so, man, that was one of the biggest takeaways I learned my first year. Second, man, he said, be firm and fair. That was another thing. He would say sometimes kids will pick up when you're bluffing.
Right.
Kids will pick up when you're clearly, exposing who your favorites are in the classroom. And so then they look at you as an ineffective leader because you're not, holding up to your word when you're trying to implement consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're a person that picks certain people that have certain unfair advantages in the classroom. So, man, those are two big takeaways.
And then shout out to what's your teacher's name again? You ready to give him a shout out again?
Mr. Cooper.
Shout out to Mr.
Skylar Cooper. His name was Skylar Cooper. Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like a strong man. Sounds like a strong man. So let's talk about the classroom and Clubhouse kind of somehow. So one thing I've learned about Clubhouse is that if you are authentic and you speak truth to power, then you kind of attract the right energy. You attract the right people. When you speak, people listen. You know what I mean? And it's a type of humility you have to have.
Right.
Teaching is the same way, like when you are, like you was talking about with your kid, you're literally teaching them, but you're still learning from them while you're teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
But that mindset of being a constant learner isn't for everybody, right? So for you, brother man, let's talk about culture, how we do business, the customs, the way, the procedures, so first thing I do it in a class first week, right? I do my procedures, classroom management, I do my rules, I go over my point system, I go over my incentives. Virtually I didn't do that as much. It was really mainly keep your camera on, right?
Yeah.
But I'm still learning how to build culture. But let's go back to the classroom real quick, and then maybe virtually, how do you build culture with your kids?
I'll say the first thing I personally do, I kind of try to hit them with a spiritual aspect. And this is something that can be applied for any child, no matter if you're Christian, Islam, Jewish. I say this even today. It's like, what do we say to negativity? Not today, right? So anything, we think about, we're coming before the classroom, we might be going through some things. I understand kids go through a lot of stuff. I'm going through stuff as well. But we are going to subscribe to the idea that we will not have any negativity today. So culturally, I kind of feel like I try to hit home with the spirit is first, right? Also, I try to reestablish my reward system. Even with like adults, when you set goals, you got to set like what am I getting after I complete this goal, right? And I think they love stuff like that. So what am I gaining? Am I gaining dojo points after I set these goals for the day of staying online? Am I staying attentive? Okay, I'm increasing dojo points. Those dojo points, the parents see it, and the parents be like, you know what, you're actually doing awesome. You're signing in on time. You're doing this. Okay, I might treat you to this. I might treat you to whatever you want to eat. You wanted some fast food for the night? I got you. You want PS5 or whatever? I got you. So I think the first thing is, establishing your reward system. Also come in of proclaiming what the day is going to be like is a big, huge thing that I noticed that works wonders in my classroom.
How are you doing that
Virtually, so even in the prezzies that I show, right, on rest, when you share your screen with your prezzies and stuff like that, I have that quote always on the top of the banner. You know what I mean? So even when I start off with that, I have that as well. Something else I implemented as well is like 5-minute silence, right? So sometimes I do morning meditations. And at first, the kids weren't really warmed up to the idea of like morning meditations. So I kind of want to, provide a holistic approach to be like, okay, let me just rest and be in a clear state of mind before I delve into instruction.
So let's talk about what have you taken L's on and have accepted, and what are you taking L's on and you haven't accepted. So what I mean by that, cameras. I've taken an L on cameras. I'm not pressing you to have your cameras on because I only have so many time, in the class, and I have other ways to make sure you're engaged, right? Stuff I won't take L's on is my power standard data, right? So I was lucky enough to have growth on each of my power standards, which was defining vocabulary and interpreting graphs. And I got growth virtually. And I had a mindset of like, I'm gonna just give it to them. You know what I mean? I'm gonna prepare them, but I'm not gonna stress like I did virtually. I mean, in person. But then one time they failed, and I got pissed. I was like, dang, man, it's the pandemic. But I didn't want to say that. I wanted to, give myself accountability. So what are you taking? What L's have you accepted? And what L's are you just like, well, I can't. I gotta make sure I get better at this somehow, somewhere.
Oh, okay. So the L's, I feel like okay. So I'll say this. So the first L I've noticed, some of my kids are doing better virtually than they are in the classroom, right?
Really?
So the biggest L I'm seeing is like, how can I continue this momentum with these certain groups of kids that are doing so well virtually, but I know they don't do well in the classroom, right? So then there's a level I'm thinking that maybe is my classroom or something going on that's giving them some type of classroom anxiety where they feel pressured to the point that they don't want to perform. You know what I mean? And so the L is it's like, okay, how do I feel like I'm gonna lose them when we go back into the classroom. You know what I mean? That's the L. It's like, wow, I mean, they're doing so good virtually, but then in the classroom setting, they're not doing well at all. But I feel like, well, then I got to take this L because this kid is, I don't know. I got to figure out how to reach that kid the way I'm reaching them virtually. You know what I mean? What's going on? Also, I haven't had this in a while, but the first time I did virtual, first time we've done this virtual thing, they weren't showing up. Right. The L is I had to understand that it was going to be a lag in terms of response of consistently signing in on time, right? And that was the biggest L because I'm like, okay, this is a bad reflection on me. But then I even talked to one of my administrators, it's like, look, listen, you might think this is an L now, but as time pans out, they're going to, sign in more on time. Because the thing is, the when there's a lag of kids signing in on time, there's a lag of you starting instruction. You know what I mean? And that causes everyone else to be in the lag because they're waiting. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, guys, we're here. I can't start today's lesson unless, so yeah.
Thank you, bro. Very reflective thoughts. And I love what you said about, dang, they like me more virtually, versus in person. You're like, but when we go back in person, I don't want them to not say like me, but they participate, they do their work, That's a great observation. And I think this gets to my next question about Malcolm and Martin, right? So growing up as a Black person who was discovering his Afrocentricity, there are like two type of people in the Hotep community, or the quote unquote conscious or quote unquote woke community, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There is the Malcolm people, the people who done read every Black Panther book, done read every Claude Anderson book, you know, they say reparations about every day, you know what I mean? And then you got the integrationalist, the assimilationalist, Martin, you know, he's like, you know, yeah, we love you, you know, we want to fight, but we're going to also work in a system, you know, we're going to infiltrate and bring people up through, you know, in a system. I think the biggest issue people have is they think they need a pick versus recognizing you need to do both.
Right.
And I think education has taught us that pretty much, you know, virtual was a amazing experience. And once we get in person, we need to think about, okay, now how can we do both? How can we infuse both? How can we be comprehensive? What are your thoughts on that?
So to answer your questions on those two philosophers, right, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, I think what we should look at with both of them is understanding. Okay, so this is what missing from education, come from the stances of looking at these two.
Okay.
There needs to, part of the curriculum needs to focus on 100% grassroots, meaning like helping the community without a top-down effect, where someone who has ample amount of money are the only people that should be helping the community. Because if you look at MLK, you look at Malcolm X, they weren't rich. Okay, you know what I mean? They were 100% grassroots. And I feel like the idea of you can do it too needs to be implemented more in education, right? Whereas, okay, cool. I mean, I know I don't have money, but even as a kid, you know what? I could start a coat fund for maybe people in and around my community that, you know, they're homeless, they don't have coats in the winter. Okay, cool. You're giving back to the community that needs help. Or you can establish some type of selling books to give back, or funding the old books to younger students. So I think if anything, moving forward, we should look at implementing a grassroots mindsets to kids. That is not, I don't see it really a thing. You know what I mean? It's one thing to know the importance of these men, but it also is important to know how can we implement their values into the children of the future.
Man, questions, bro. Absolutely. So what's the potential of that? So let's say we did do that. We instituted a grassroots curriculum where the solutions that kids are providing, or coming up with in the school based off their observations of their community problems, they actually implement that and they get that return on investment, right? The community engagement, the community's appreciation, the community more involved. Let's say ideally, you know, we do that in every school. What's the potential you think education can, what's the potential for education?
Man, honestly, the potential is, as a society, we'll look at, the potential is this: the American society they downplay the importance of teachers. If you were to see this effect, they'll understand the importance of what we do in the classroom, first and foremost, right? Also, they'll also understand the sense of urgency for strong people in the classroom, strong leaders in the classroom. So then, knowing that, more funding will even go to so many school districts because they're seeing the impact, right? They're seeing what they're doing with the little that they have. So now, wow, they're doing this with this amount. Imagine if more funding goes back into the school, they can even like do even more than what they're doing now.
And I think those teachers who feel like they are, like, literally, they feel like the hard work that they're doing isn't paying off, someone lied to you. Your work is paying off. You might not be seeing it right now. You might not ever see it, but it is paying off. I remember when I left my first school, because it just wasn't it. They never had a physics teacher in the last 6 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow. That's wow.
And not to say I regret my decision, but that's the reality. And not saying that you should bad and that's why you should stay and make yourself unhappy. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is your impact is super needed.
It is.
And what you're doing is super needed, brother, man. I love your ability to, you really appreciate, you know, education, and that's amazing. So let's talk about being responsive, right? So culture is, you know, something that is now, it's a buzzword, right? Culture responsive pedagogy, reality pedagogy, you know what I mean? And then we say these things and we, you know, we don't, how can I say? I mean, there's been countless years of research on this, but it still feels fairly new. For you, what is culturally responsive teaching, or what is changing your pedagogy so you can allow your students to think deeper, like Dr. Zorana Hammond says?
So this is where I'm gonna start with this, right? Part of that is disposing your cultural biases of kids who don't really affiliate with your personal culture. And I think it's really important, even it's so important at a national level, because, you know, teachers that look like you and me, they're less than 2%. There are more middle-class European and American teachers across the board, right? And these teachers in themselves, they were raised in areas full of cultural diversity themselves. They pretty much were raised in centralized white communities. So then when they teach these kids of color, they don't know how to reach them because they don't understand the culture. So for the first thing that we need to do for across the board is understanding general basis, you know, of the various cultures, right? We don't really put much into cultural studies, right? Whereas, you know, we're understanding different traditional practices of some of these students, religious observances of some of these students. So once you actually get an education of understanding a broad spectrum of people, then you actually can take that in your classroom and understand, okay, what not to say, what not to do, and what to implement to reach that specific child, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then Christopher Emben, he gives an amazing example that if you have a group of Latinx students and they are, excuse me, they have diversity within them. If they come from a different Central American country, if they come from, you know, El Salvador or Peru, you know, you can't just paint them all in one picture. The effective teacher is going to understand the cultural differences, the cultural things that make them, say, for example, polarized, right? Because certain cultures have issues with each other. So, for example, Detroit had a lot of closings of schools, and in Detroit, it's based off like blocks. So, like, you live on this block, you go to school. Generally, those kids go to that block, and if there's unfortunately confrontation, you know, there's none if you don't cross your block. But systematically, what happened is that in certain parts, they pretty much brought all the schools together. So they closed one school and brought those kids all into other schools. So you already know what's going to happen. When you're not thinking with equity, right, and you're just thinking about saving money, you're thinking about, right, just, okay, they're getting an education anyway, so they should be good. You literally are just causing more and more problems.
Yeah, and I can even provide another example. Like something that I've experienced. I've had kids in my classroom that did not know English. Imagine that. And it's like, okay, we're just trying to fill up the classroom, make sure they're in the class, versus actually having a legitimate ESOL program where you have someone who is a legitimate interpreter who knows both languages. And then having a program to kind of easily segue them into a all English classroom, right? So the thing about it, and that's, you know, being culturally responsive, is understanding, okay, we just have this kid who just recently migrated to the US. We should not put this kid in an all English classroom. It makes no sense, right? And so then it should be a situation where it's just like you have someone who knows both language, maybe a Spanish immersion school where you have an educator who's fluent both in Spanish and English, you know? So that's just an example that I think of that I've experienced firsthand, you know.
So you're bilingual?
I am not bilingual. I'm working on it though.
Okay, thank you for your honesty. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're a middle school teacher though?
Yes.
Okay, so you're a superhero because middle school is a whole nother beast.
Yeah,
man.
people say that all the time. I remember it was orientation time. This was like the first time I was being implemented in the school system. And they was like, yeah, where are you designated? I'm like, I'm in middle school. Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God. You know what I mean? And it's just like, guys, I mean, these group of kids need help too. I mean, like, come on now. We were once in middle school at one point in time, you know?
So talk about maybe like how do you start your class for middle school? Like how do you control all of that energy into a lesson? I'm curious to know like what are the intricacies?
So the first thing with middle school, you got, okay, so here's the thing. Um, you have to grab them early in terms of what do you expect in your classroom first, right? What are your grounded expectations? Kids at that age, they might think of you as a cool teacher, but that means that they can just run all over you or walk all over you and thinking that they can get anything out of you, right? That they want. But the best thing you start off with is having grounded procedures in the classroom, right? That's the first thing you should do. Like I'm talking about from day one, right? There's one thing I had to learn my first year. I didn't make any grounded procedures day one. I tried to do that like October, November. And then I kind of lost some of them because they were like, okay, now you're trying to switch it up on us now? Man, we ain't taking you seriously. So at that age, definitely have grounded procedures, and it should be implemented in various sections in your classroom where they can see it, they can audibly hear it. You know what I'm saying? Auditory, they got to hear it too as well. You know, it could be like a couple of days out the week. You constantly go back and stating your procedures, right? They have to see it, they have to hear it. I even like put it even pre-COVID. I used to have it on some of my PowerPoint slides of what I expect in the classroom, like right before you go into independent work practice. You know what I mean? So I would say if anything with middle school kids, they can easily run away with you. You know what I mean? Grounded procedures is I would say the best thing, one of your best friends, and also another best friend for classroom management. Because with middle school, classroom management can get a little tricky. You know what I mean? So they're not that mature. Some of them are just segueing out of elementary school. Now I notice with me, um, especially for the seventh graders, definitely have to be grounded, right? Sixth graders, they kind of still have the fear of God in them. They just coming out of elementary school. So you might say a little thing and they still small and short. You know what I mean? That you might can scare them a little bit. You're like, oh my God, okay, sorry. But then the seventh grade, they come back, you know, the school, you know, in the summer, they're a little taller, their voices sound deeper. You know what I mean? They got a little bravado going on. They smelling themselves. They feel like they can challenge authority at this time. So yeah, I would say grounded procedures.
They're no longer in junior high.
You said what?
I said they're no longer in middle school, they're in junior high.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you do that during COVID?
So, and that's one of the things too. So how do I transfer that virtually? Talking to parents every day, right? So to hit home with them, I have to email parents daily. If I feel even a slight bit of lack of effort, email them parents right away because they have no excuses. They're home. They're right at home. I can't I can't exalt like certain procedures like you can in person. So the biggest thing is, and it goes back to no bluff, right? Whenever you see something that needs to be corrected, email that parent, right? Because the principal's not there virtually, right? The parent is now one of the principles that you have to get at, like in the beginning that you see something not working.
Thank you, bro. We got 10 minutes, man. I want to talk about music, man. So
Okay.
how important is music for you and your pedagogy?
You know, it's funny that you said that. That's something I would say I experimented with. Now I was doing my own personal data. So prior to COVID, there have been some moments in time, and I'm not gonna lie to you, some educators thought I was crazy for doing this. I would have my kids listen to music on their own. as they independently work, right? And my whole rule was I don't want to hear it. If I hear any music, if I'm hearing it, then I'm shutting it down. So, and that was a reward system for them. If I can see you stay attuned in class for most of the time, I will give you the right to listen to music during your independent work time. And what I noticed, like, it actually enhanced my classroom management because, okay, I had like administrator walk past I'm like, man, we can't hear nothing. We can't hear nothing while they doing this work. What's going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and and I'm thankful that I have a team that is open for me to have creative control in that sense. Because I know it's an understanding that most people like, oh, you're having them listen to music while they do work. Like that's so like unteacher like. That's so uneducation like. But I would say, man, it has some results in it. It has some results in it. Now, am I thinking about going back to it? I'm still thinking about it because I got to reestablish my procedures in person first in order if I can, implement that thing. But definitely, because I even remember watching some people in college, how they will work endlessly, just listening to music. Me personally, I can't listen to music and work. That's just not me. It doesn't work for me. But I noticed that worked for a lot of people. And I'm like, and they love listening to music anytime they can get their hands on it. I'm always like, they were actually diligently working. Why do you listen to music? Interesting.
Man, thank you, man. Thank you for everything you do, man. You are
Appreciate it.
definitely exemplar middle school teacher. Definitely brother man who cares about your kids. And you're not trying to do too much, man. That's why the biggest thing that you said, you was like, you better not hear that music. That's the only thing I felt that.
That's the only thing. I don't want to hear the music. That's it. That's it, man. That's it. That's it. I don't want to hear the music. I hear the music is getting shut down.
The kids miss you, man. I know they miss you.
Yeah. They do. I even had one time I was on IG Live with a friend. Somehow they found my Instagram, my first year students, and they were just bombarding my Instagram. It was so funny in the comment section and all that type of stuff. It was hilarious.
That means you're making an impact, man. And I just want to say thank you, bro.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, bro. We definitely got to do the second part. What do you want people to get from the podcast?
The key takeaways I would say is challenge what you know. Challenge what you think is working, right? Don't become stagnant in your principles and your routines, right? When a routine gets too stagnant, there's no growth from it. And the whole purpose for learning is rooted in curiosity to know more, right? So if I could say another thing, remain curious. Don't lose your curiosity. As an educator, you have to remain curious.
And that's the simplicity. I got my brother Rafael Powell,
Thank
not Norman Powell. He doesn't play basketball. He's just an educator. Excuse me. He's a powerful educator, teaching kids social studies. Brother man, where can they find you?
They can find me on IG. I might change my IG name. I don't know. It's very unprofessional, but then I like it. I mean, I don't post anything that's crazy. It's Turp Poppy, and people want to know like, yo, where's that name from? So it's actually rooted in my alma mater mascot, a terrapin. So a terrapin is a turtle, like a tortoise, native of the state of Maryland. So then, and it's Turp Poppy. Yeah, we got this. Turp Poppy. Okay.
Maryland's a dope school. I grown up in DMV, like Maryland was like, okay, yeah, that's a dope school, And then I remember the basketball team, bro. Like,
oh yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, Batscast, you remember
Graves Batscast. Yeah, Graves Batscast.
He was my favorite, definitely my favorite.
Okay, and that was your favorite. Okay, he was cool.
My favorite, and then Juan Dixon, Steve Blake, that whole DMV area. Like, there's a really good documentary. It's called Something in the Water on Showtime, and it just talks.
I think it's called In the Water. I know.
In the water, right?
In the water. Yeah.
PG County. Made me really proud to live in DMV for a little bit. So Definitely, brother, man. Gotta have you back on the podcast, brother, man. Appreciate you. Peace.
Man, I appreciate you having me on here, man, for sure. Like, I definitely enjoyed this. I mean, I was like, okay, let me make sure